You're listening to Morning Edition on this Monday here on WCBU. I'm Rich Drager. Illinois has experienced more tornadoes in the first 6 months of this year than at any time in history. Those 170 plus tornadoes include nearly 100 in central Illinois. State Climatologist Trent Ford tells reporter Ben Howell the state has had the right mix of ingredients in the right places for a year of weather extremes.
The ingredients I mentioned were really just having enough instability in the atmosphere, which is heat, humidity, especially that coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. The second one is the right dynamics, the right air movement, both here at the surface and up in the upper atmosphere. And in April, when we had 70 tornadoes in the month of April, which is quite a lot, we had both of those ingredients in play. We had a lot of instability. It was the warmest April on record for Illinois, so a lot of heat to fuel those, and the combination of those ingredients made the storms really efficient, meaning that if we were to have severe weather, these storms were generating tornadoes at a higher rate than we would normally expect them to, just because of that mix of ingredients. We took a break in May, but then in June now we've been back on it, where we've had the right conditions, the larger environment, as well as the right conditions here in Illinois to make it so that it's a really frequent, really, record-breaking, active, severe weather year.
Do you have any inkling? Maybe it's, you're in the middle of the research, but do you maybe have a hunch or an inkling? Is it kind of a climate change issue that we're dealing with?
In reality, what we've seen is that there has been, even when we account for better observing methods, better accounting of tornadoes, there's still been a slight increase in tornadoes over the last 30 to 40 years in the Midwest, as well as the Mid-South. However, that trend has been very small. We've seen a tendency for more days with tornado outbreaks, earlier tornadic activity in the year in February and March, as opposed to April and May. Those are kind of those longer term trends. What we've seen in the last 4 years is essentially a step change, going from an average of 50 to 60 tornadoes to an average of over 100. And so while there may be a contribution of climate change to the last 4 years of tornadoes, it's likely not the only, it's probably not even the primary contributor, given how abrupt that change has been.
And then if I step back to some of these causes, like you mentioned, the instability, like a really hot April, that kind of thing. So you can, if it's fair to say, I think you can assume going into it, you would expect high tornado activity. And if that's right, can you really expect, so much, if that makes sense? I mean, you expect a lot of tornadoes, but did you really expect to see another record-setting year necessarily?
Even if we knew that April was going to be very, very warm, perhaps we could have said, okay, well, it's also going to be very active. But in reality, what we look back on the record of April temperatures in Illinois, our warmest Aprils have been some of our driest Aprils, and drought doesn't usually portend a lot of tornadoes. So in reality, what we had was a warm but also very wet April that made it so that we had frequent storm tracks. So no, and even understanding if there was an outlook for, let's say, a more active tornado season, we certainly couldn't have forecasted something like this, which, this record-breaking number. Not to mention that, okay, yes, we broke the annual tornado record here in Illinois, but we did so on June 21st. So yeah, it's even among expectations of an active severe weather season, it's greatly surpassed those expectations.
With Illinois State Climatologist Trent Ford, are you seeing any special effects or considerations? Central Illinois, our region, from you over to Peoria, are we getting a little more rain? Have we been a little warmer? Anything out of the ordinary for this region?
I mean, we've been with the active storm track, the tornadoes within Illinois have tended to cluster in central Illinois. There tends to be a higher density there. Call it from, the Peoria over to Pontiac, south down to Effingham area. And with that active storm track, we've also been very, very wet. So I think already this June is a top 5 wettest, at least top 10 wettest on record in Peoria. And given the outlooks, it looks like we're going to continue to get a lot of rainfall. So at least for the end of the month. So yeah, for a lot of places in central Illinois, this month will go down as one of the wettest, probably a top 5 to 10 wettest June on record. which just speaks to how active the storm track has been. And not only just how efficient these storms are at producing tornadoes, but also rainfall, which is not something that we necessarily always see correlated.
And do you have any data on the Bloomington, Norwell, Peoria in between about tornadoes? How many tornadoes have been in central Illinois? I know you said the most. I didn't know if you had any numbers.
Well, I can say this. So I cannot tell you exactly how many tornadoes, but we can talk about tornado reports,
Uh-huh.
which there can be multiple tornado reports per tornado. So just to let you know, but it does give us an idea of how frequent it's been. Ours for the entirety of Central Illinois is based in Lincoln. Of course, it covers Peoria all the way actually all the way up towards the Quad Cities down here to Champaign. They have issued 135 or have remarked on 135 tornado reports.
Do you have any reason to believe that maybe next year will be any different? If it might go back down, is it a wait and see? Is it too far out? And I
The,
guess I
the
could say also for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, just to say that the rest of the year, at least for the summertime, we see outlooks of above average precipitation, near normal temperature, which means lots of fluctuations. So I would expect that we'll likely continue to see severe weather for at least the rest of the summer. It's probably not going to completely shut off. It may slow down as it tends to as we get into July. We tend to see many fewer tornadoes July, August, September than we do in May, June. But yeah, as long as we have the right conditions in place, which looks like they're going to be there, we can set up a little bit more active severe weather continued. For the next year, I think your question is good because if we were to say, hey, this is climate change, then what the expectation would be is that every year moving forward is maybe doesn't look exactly like this, but it's going to be similar. It's going to be a lot of tornado activity. But like I mentioned, it's not really that way. We don't really see that. We see a very small trend that's maybe attributable to climate change. So whatever's been causing this combination of events have been causing all of these tornadoes across Illinois in the last 4 years. There's no indication that that is likely to continue, at least not in perpetuity.
That was State Climatologist Trent Ford with reporter Ben Howell. You're listening to Morning Edition here on WCBU, Peoria Public Radio, part of the NPR network.